Well, I'm here with Evan Oppenheimer, director of Peas and Carrots. Evan, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Trying to adjust to the shift in the weather here, which I wasn't totally prepared for. But
Oh,
aside from
uh,
that, doing real good.
not tornadoes, I hope. Cold.
No,
You can put a jacket on. They don't make tornado jackets, as far as I'm aware.
my daughter went back to school in St. Louis yesterday, and she was greeted by lots of snow. So she was a little surprised by that.
Nice.
Yeah.
But Peas and Carrots, this is kind of a strange premise. Where'd the idea of this come from, and how did this germinate?
So, it's a question you always think about. You don't think about so much when you're making the movie. So this is my eighth movie as a writer and director. And, you kind of just do what comes to mind. And then when it's finished, people are always curious about where the idea came from. And sometimes it's not so clear because you've been working on the idea for so long, kind of hard to think back to the very beginning of the process. But in this case, it's partially about a family in New York. It's kind of, my life is having a family in New York. And I made a movie. This is my second movie. It's kind of about a family in New York, a family with three kids and working parents. So that was a big part of it, is just kind of drawing lessons from my own life. And then the particular thing that happens to the main character, this kind of more fantastical element, I think that came from the idea that, a lot of times when something dramatic happens, we envision our lives as being movies. And if that's so, what makes us think, if our life is a movie, what makes us think that we're the star of that movie? It's kind of an arrogant thing to assume that everybody's in our movie and we're not in their movie. So I guess that was a big part of it, is just that thought.
Yeah, when it got to that part of the of this movie, they kind of had that conversation, kind of clicked in my head. I'm like, oh, okay, so I see where he's going here. But it was
Yeah.
kind of and then I went back there, becoming the background character, watching the rest of it. But so when you said you've made a bunch of movies in the past, what's it like, kind of getting movies like this off the ground? 'Cause do you do you know the movie's going to be made ahead of time, or do you write the script and then try to sell it, or like what's your process like on getting these off the ground?
I'm sure everybody's got a different process, so I can tell you what mine is. And, what's worked for me is my movies. My first one was a super tiny movie, and it had enough success that it kind of led to my second, and then to my third. And inevitably along the line, there were bumps. It wasn't a continued kind of bigger, bigger, bigger. I'm more bigger. I'm like implying that bigger is better. Bigger isn't necessarily better, but it wasn't an unbroken line of successes that made it easy to get to the next movie. But what did happen after a period of time is I had some credibility as a filmmaker, and so I could find people who believed in what I did, who'd seen movies of mine and wanted to be a part of it. So that's how I do it now. Is I work with producers who have enjoyed my earlier films, who know that I give them a shot at two things, and the two things are being a part of a worthwhile project. I think everybody wants that because it's so much effort and so hard to do. And the second thing is, when you're dealing with producers, is give them a shot at making some money. Obviously, you got to make it clear that as an investment, when you have a list of investments, movies are pretty far down on a list of good investments that are likely to make you money. But they can make you money, and if the filmmakers, at the same time as they're treating it as an art form, treat it as a business, then at least you're giving the people who invested their money, you're giving them the best shot that they can. I think that's all they can ask. Obviously, you're not going to have people invest money they can't afford to lose, because sometimes you lose, it all or almost it all. So people have to understand what they're getting into. But after a while now, I guess people feel like, they feel like my movies are an opportunity for them to be involved in the creation of something good and hopefully make some money while doing it.
And from inception to release, I'm sure there's like a bunch of peaks and valleys. What are some things when making a movie where it's like what's the peak there where you're like, yes, this is why I'm doing this, and then what's the valley where it's like, I wish I never had to do this crap again?
Yeah. I mean, I think as in maybe a lot of lines of work, there are a lot of valleys and there are not as many peaks. You know, I think if you have a job where you're like constantly peaking, that's awesome, but it just seems rare. Maybe that would become your norm if you were always in that place, you know, and you wouldn't consider it a peak. But I would say for me, I mean, this is one of the peaks. Like finally, after all the effort, getting to share it with the world, and the cast and crew is going to be at the screening, and get to walk the red carpet or orange carpet or whatever color the carpet is. You know, that's a wonderful thing because we're all sharing it. We all worked really hard to make this happen. So that's almost as big a peak as you could get. I would say I really enjoy the editing process. I mean, it's not one big peak, but it's kind of what's good about the editing process is it's low stress. You know, when you're shooting a movie, there's so much going on. You have so little time, so much money is being spent. It's super stressful. And then you get into the editing room and it's just you and the editor. The editing room is like virtual. There's no actual editing room anymore. But you can take as much time as you want. And I always take a lot of time in the editing of my movies. Just because it's easier for me that way and it's more fun and there's nobody breathing down my neck saying you got to get this done tomorrow. So I take as much time as I need to get it, you know, as good as I think I can. And that's fun because you're constantly solving problems. You know, every day you're kind of, you know, you find a problem and then you find a solution. Sometimes you got to find 5 solutions because the first 4 don't work. And that's kind of fun because, you know, eventually you can solve any problem. And we had some problems in this movie that, I mean, not in the editing, but some problems that I've never had to deal with before, and we found creative solutions to them.
What were some of those like problem? What was like a problem that maybe had like an interesting solution that you wouldn't have come up with otherwise?
Well, I'll share 2 with you, and the second one required the greatest creativity. The first was that after a week of shooting, Kira Berger, who's the lead actor in the movie, she broke her ankle while she was getting into a car. She was getting into an Uber to come to set, and she slipped, and she broke her ankle, and she eventually needed surgery. And we had to wait. We shut down for 5 or 6 months, and we came back and we shot the rest of the movie 5 or 6 months later. I wasn't gonna make the movie with somebody else. Like, we had great footage from that first week, and you know, it goes to like what I said before about taking whatever time it takes. I mean, yeah, if someone had said, no, you got to make the movie, you know, production's got to be finished this month, I would have had to have reshot the movie, recast the lead role. But without having somebody doing that, I was definitely going to wait for her to come back and use the footage we had. And the second thing was when we came back 6 months later, I talked to the other actors who'd been in the movie, and the actor who plays her dad is this guy, Jordan Bridges, great actor, great guy. By then he was in LA. We shot here in New York, New Jersey. And I'm on the phone with him, and he's like, okay, you know, great. You know, I'd settled on dates. He's like, you know, 3 things I got to tell you. The first is that I'm in LA, and, you know, probably I can get back, but, you know, I'm based in LA for this Palm Royale series that I'm on, like Apple TV series. I said, okay, and we can make that work. He said, and the second thing is when I come back, because, you know, on the series, I'm only going to have like a day or 2. So we got to get my stuff shot in a day or 2. I think through it. I'm like, okay, he doesn't have many scenes left. We shot all the family stuff. So we just needed to shoot the music stuff where they were practicing in the music studio. And then when they finally performed at the end of the movie. So I thought about it. I said, okay, we can group that stuff. We can make that work. And he said, and the third thing is for this Palm Royale TV show that I'm on, I've grown a mustache and I can't shave the mustache.
Okay.
I said, okay, Jordan, I'm going to need a second on. So that was a tough one. I don't think I've ever had as difficult a problem to solve in production as that. So I thought about it, and I thought, okay, well, maybe like the first thing that came to mind was like visual effects. Maybe we can remove the mustache like with visual effects. But that was going to be prohibitively expensive. And then I came up with this idea, and it was lucky that we'd shot all the family stuff, because the scenes we hadn't shot are interspersed throughout the movie. So it wasn't like he could just grow a mustache all of a sudden at the end, because these scenes were spaced out. But we hadn't shot the music stuff, and we hadn't shot the music video of his band. You know, he and his wife had a band in the 90s, and they had this one hit song, and we hadn't shot the music video for that song. So eventually I came up with this idea. I was like, well, what if back in the day, he'd had a mustache? That was kind of like his thing. He was known for this mustache. And so now when they play in today's, try to resuscitate the band, well, he wears this mustache. It has to be a fake mustache because it comes and goes. He decides, as a good luck charm, to wear the mustache in the present day scenes. So that's what we did. And we played the mustache as fake, even though it was real. If you tell people it's fake, they'll think it's fake. I wrote him out of one scene, the first practice scene with the family. He kind of appears at the end. You only see his back. And then it doesn't go well. That was the explanation for why in the second scene where they try to practice, because the first one didn't go well, he tries this mustache as a good luck charm for the second scene, and it does go well. And then in the finale where they play on stage, again, he's wearing the mustache because the good luck charm has worked.
Oh, dude, that's a great story. Yeah, watching the movie, I remember it was like, oh, that's a crap mustache. And then I'm looking at him like, oh, no, it looks pretty good to me. Oh, goodness. I kind of also want to talk a little bit about Kelly McAndrew, Miss Washington. I loved her character in this because, like, when she finds out that Joey can go through that different world or whatever, you just saw, like, you can just see in her face that I hate my life so much. I need something, please. But she just embodied that so well.
Part of it may be the wall of formulas you see behind her in the school classroom. But I'll talk about Kelly for a sec. Kelly is awesome. She's one of these people who just, the moment you meet her, you're like, I want you to be my best friend. She's so interesting and so smart and so cool and so much fun. The thing about that role is when we were casting that role, there were only two women who I saw who I thought could handle it. It's not an easy role. You gotta be able to spout a lot of science. It's like having a role on Star Trek. You gotta be able to spout a lot of scientific babble and be convincing and enthusiastic at the same time. So there were two people that I liked. One was an actress named Angel Desai, and the other was Kelly McAndrew. So I talked to the casting director, Judy Henderson, and I said, well, these are the two I love. And she said, well, Kelly is going off to do a play, so she's not available anymore. And I said, okay, so it'll be Angel. So I cast Angel. Well, then we had that delay of 5 months. And when we came back, Angel was sick, and she couldn't do the part. She really wanted to, but she just wasn't well enough to do it. And I was about to panic. And I was talking to Judy Henderson, the casting director, and she's like, well, you know who's back in town? Kelly McAndrew. I'm like, fantastic. Is she available? We needed her like the next day. Thankfully, she was available. She came in. She was absolutely fantastic. And then the sort of nice, heartwarming end of the story is the part of Bobby, who's the character in the other world, like the kind of boss in the other world. That was supposed to be played by an actress who I've worked with before named Kate Mulgrew. Who I adore, who's in my last movie, The Magnificent Meyerson, and Kate is well known from various roles. But when we had this delay, Kate couldn't be in the movie, so I needed to replace her. Well, that shoot was a week or so later. By that point, Angel Desai had gotten healthy again, and so I was able to cast her in that role. So she was still able to be in the movie in an important role, and it all worked out.
Yeah, and Angel actually had a really great part too of the that whole conversation between her and Joey, and yeah, I mean, there's pretty much great characters all around in this.
Thank you.
But yeah, the world premiere screening is this Thursday, December 5th, 7:30 at Regal Union Square, and I guess we'll just end on this. Just kind of get a movie recommendation from you, but like a movie that's like, this movie's real good and no one talks about it, sort of thing.
Oh boy, see you're asking a guy who's been tied up and hasn't seen a movie in a long time. I just watched my daughter just watched this movie for class, and we watched it with her. She was home. We watched this movie called Risk Cutters: A Love Story
All right.
from 2006. Interesting movie. Very. She was watching it for a religious studies class. So if you're interested in a movie that kind of would be of interest to someone with a theological bent. There aren't that many movies like that. So it's a very niche audience. But you know what? If you like theological movies, Risk Cutters, A Love Story.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick at all. I remember it came out and it was kind of like it kind of had like a little heat to it, and then yeah, you're right. I just have not heard of it since. So that's a great pick.
It's a weird one. It's a weird one. But for the right person, it's a good one.
Yeah. Well, Evan, thanks for joining me, and congratulations on the movie, and look forward to seeing what else you have in the future.
Thank you, Eric. Pleasure talking to you.